everyone. Welcome to Together Church's online experience. I am so excited that you are joining us today. If this is your first time joining us here with our experience, why don't you do me a favor? First, I want you to go to mytogetherchurch.com and check us out. Check out our website, see who we are, plan a visit to come be with us. And then next, I want you to send us a message wherever you're listening, watching, enjoying this content. Let us know where you're watching from and let us know how we can pray with you. Whether it's a need in your life or whether it's a celebration, a praise report that's happening in your life, help us to continue to better connect with you. Also, if you are a regular and you want to help support what we are doing here at Together Church, do me a favor, go to mytogetherchurch.com and there is a give portal where you can give to support what we are doing here at Together Church. Hey, today is a special Sunday. Today is what we call a Rewind Sunday. This is where we go into our archive of messages and pull out a message that we think is just wonderful, one that we think will bless you, and one that we think will challenge your faith, and it is worth sharing again, right? God's word isn't just for one time and one moment, it's eternal. So today we are going to do a throwback to one of my favorite messages, and I'm so excited to share this with you again. We love y'all, and life is better together. We're going to talk about getting unstuck, right? I don't know if you've ever been stuck before, but I remember several years ago, I was riding in Blackwater with two of my friends, and it's a single cab truck, so there's only seats in the front, and three of us were piled into the front of that truck, and it was tight. And we start going down this dirt road and we start smelling gas. And next thing you know, the truck starts to sputter and we come to a complete stop. And the truck won't crank, the truck won't move. And I don't remember at the time if we didn't have cell phones on us or we just didn't have service because we were in the middle of nowhere and we were stuck. And we could have walked, 30 miles back home, but that wouldn't be good. So we decided that we'd stay where we're at and wait for the next day to go find some help. And well, we couldn't sleep in the truck because there was three of us and there wasn't room and it smelled like gas. So we just couldn't do that. And so what we did, because we're smart, is we slept in the middle of this dirt road. And so you see this truck sitting in the middle of the dirt road. You get past the truck, you see three teenagers sleeping kind of in a circle, and we're using our shoes as pillows in the middle of this dirt road around this very small fire. And if you drove by, you'd probably look and go, okay, what kind of cult stuff is happening in the middle of this road? And the next morning, we got up, we went to the closest house or business or whatever it was, gas station, I don't remember, and we called his dad. His dad came and rescued us. And we were stuck, right? And there was nothing we could do at this point. And one more redneck story of my past is I remember where we went to school, they were building a neighborhood directly behind the school. They were building this road, and so there was little dirt trails and dirt paths that you could go down. And I was driving my vehicle at the time. It was a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and we get into the woods and we're driving around, and all of a sudden I'm going down this trail and I come to an immediate stop. My tires are spinning. I can't go anywhere. And what happened was the ruts that I were in got very deep, deeper than my tires could reach. And my back axle was sitting in the middle of that rut and not allowing my tires to catch to move. So I was just sitting there spinning my tires. And, at the time, my parents because this was kind of a family vehicle at the time that they didn't want me taking it off road. They didn't want me doing these redneck game things, right? Like they didn't like it. So I had to find a way to get out without calling my parents. So this big, like, Dodge Ram diesel truck is driving by. So I wave him down. Me and the friends wave him down. He comes and he backs his truck all the way up to my hitch, right? And puts a chain on my hitch, chain on his hitch, and then he just floors it and yanks us out of this rut. And my heart sank because as hard as he pulled it, I was just imagining the frame just being separated because he pulled with all of that power. And I'm sitting there having a heart attack because I'm so worried that my parents were going to find out that we broke something, because it was something we couldn't push, right? Someone had to literally yank us out of where we were stuck. And I know some of you have probably had similar situations. Maybe you've been fishing, right, and your motor goes out. Maybe you've been fishing and there's a hole in your boat. Maybe it's your 1-year anniversary and you and your wife and a couple of friends end up stuck on the side of Highway 85 in Crestview. And you have to sit there for hours until the tow truck comes, until your next ride gets there, because you need help from people. That's what I'm trying to say. We needed my friend's dad to rescue us, right? We needed this random Dodge dually big truck to help us. We needed the tow truck to come help us, right? We've all had situations where we needed people to help us to get unstuck. And I want to talk today about the reality of hard stucks, right? Being stuck in very difficult situations. And it could be you're stuck because of emotional connections, spiritual connections. This is things that I've had to go through in my life, and we'll talk about that later. But these aren't being stuck because of situations that other people have put you in. But these are the type of stucks where you're stuck. You're stuck because of your emotions. You're stuck because of your connections. You're stuck because of where you're at. Now, this is a syndrome, this is a thing that we're going to be calling the George Bailey syndrome, right? It's Christmas time. Have I said this yet? Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. This is the last Sunday before Christmas, and I just want you to know, Merry Christmas. So you know George Bailey, right? George Bailey had big dreams, big plans. I mean, he was going to lasso the moon for Mary, right? And so what happens in George Bailey's life? George Bailey is planning a trip across the pond. He has plans of traveling the world before he starts school. And while he's planning this, he meets a wonderful woman named Mary. And he promises her the moon. But then disaster strikes. His dad has a stroke, and his dad passes away. So George has to step in and run the family business. And he says, George, the board comes to him and says, George, if you don't stay, we have to close the family business down. So George skips his trip. He skips going to college. He gives all that money that he's been saving up so his brother could go to school. And his brother comes back, and the idea here is that he was going to send his brother to school so his brother could come back, run the business, that George can go and to live his life. But his brother comes back, and he's married, and he has this job offer from his father-in-law, and he can't take over the business, and George is stuck. So fast forward, and George finally marries Mary. right? George and Mary get married, and they have these wonderful times in their lives. They buy a house, they have kids, and they have plans of going on their honeymoon, right? But when they do, there's a run of the banks, and people are pulling their money out, and George has to use his money to pay the bank. He has to use his money to pay the people because of the run of the banks. So he couldn't go on his honeymoon. George is stuck. George now is buying a house, and he's got 3 wonderful kids, and disaster strikes again. His uncle loses a large sum of money, and George's life spins out of control. And he doesn't know what to do. It's nothing that he's done, right? But other people. Now, the essence of the George Bailey syndrome is being stuck in life not because of destructive living, but because of life in general. George was doing what was right by saving his family business. He was doing what was right by giving people their money. He was doing what was right. He was always sacrificing. He was always sacrificing himself to help someone else. And it caused him to be stuck in life. He gave up traveling and school for the family business. He gave up his honeymoon for the family business. He turned down high-paying job offers for his family business. And it was not only about the business, right? But this was about the community that he lived in and how this building and loan business that he was in was essential to the livelihood of Bedford Falls. And it gets to the point where George sees there's no other option. He can't do anything else. He's about to go to jail because of the money error. And he says, you know what? I'm done. I can't do anything. And if you've seen the movie, It's a Wonderful Life, you see that George decides to jump into the river to end his life. But that's where he meets Clarence Oddbody. George loves Bedford Falls. He loves his family, but he was stuck. He was stuck in life. In his mind, nothing was working for him, right? There was nothing but work, Bedford Falls, and struggling. Can you relate to this, right? You just feel like life is just about struggling. It's about difficulties. It's about arguing. It's about anxiety. It's about all of these things. And just like all the stories that I told you from my childhood, right? Or from my life, I needed help from other people. In George's mind, there was no one in Bedford Falls who could help him. So God, right? God sends him an angel. God sends him Clarence Oddbody. What a great name. Proverbs 27 and verse 6 says, wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Wounds from a friend, hard conversations from a friend can be trusted. And I think the very thing we need in our life is a friend who is honest with us, a true friend who tells us not what we want to hear, but what we need to hear and what we need to believe for ourselves. Now, George, in reality, get ready for this one. George had a wonderful life. He had a job. He had a house. He had a community that loved him. A wonderful family. It was, again, a wonderful life. But George couldn't see it. His wheels were just freely spinning in Bedford Falls. So the Lord sent Clarence to help show George that the life he really had. Clarence wasn't there to console George, but to adjust. Okay, let me start that over. So the Lord sent Clarence to help show George the life he really had. Clarence wasn't there to console George, but to adjust his focus on not what he didn't have or not what he's missed out on, but on what he truly had in life. Being stuck means we are focusing on the wrong things. We are looking at life and situations and areas in our life the wrong way. And that's what Clarence came back to show George. And this Christmas is what we need to do ourselves. What are you focusing on? Where is your focus? Where is your mind on the situations and where you're at right now? And I went through this a couple of years ago where I was in a ministry position that I loved and I liked, and I was doing okay in it. And I kept talking to a friend of mine. He kept saying, "You got to go. You got to leave. You're bored where you're at. You're stuck." And me, being hard headed, took me 2 years to realize what my friend was saying and that I needed to get out and to do something else. I felt like I was happy ish, right? But I felt like I had to be there. I felt like that church needed me. I felt like the people that I was ministering to needed me, right? I was like George Bailey with the people of Bedford Falls. I felt like I was needed. I felt like what I was doing had to be done there. But I had to come to a place where I realized that I was just stuck. And it was leading me to be troubled in a lot of areas in my life. And it got to the point to where I was depressed, and I just had that kind of that way George Bailey was feeling, that I felt like there was no other hope. There was no place for me to go. There was nothing for me to do, that I was just stuck in this moment. And my friend was always telling me to go, to step out in faith, to step out to hear where God's leading me and calling me. And I needed the wounds of a friend. I remember I was at a place where he gave me this book uh, that was called Necessary Endings, a book by Dr. Henry Cloud. And, I read a couple of chapters and I put it away. And then I remember getting to a place in my life where I just, for some reason, I thought about this book again, and I went to it and I picked it up, and it was exactly what I needed to hear in that time. And I remember just reading and crying and processing through through the book. And there's a couple of things that I learned, and I want to share those with you today to help you to get unstuck. Because the core of this, again, I want to remind you, is not that we're stuck because of situations that other people have put on us. We're not stuck because of destructive lifestyles. We're stuck because of life, where we feel like we need to be for what we're doing in our life. So the first thing that I learned is I needed true friendship. George finds a book after he returns home, after the thing that all happened with Clarence. And he finds a book, and inside the book it says, "Dear George, remember, no man is a failure who has friends. P.S. Thanks for the wings. Love, Clarence." No man is a failure who has friends. True friendship is developed over years of being the friend to others that you need in your life. Listen, the friend that you need in your life right now is the exact friend that you need to be to someone else. The people that God has called you to be in community with, the people that are around you, you need to live out that friendship that you need to your other friends. Because just like you're struggling and you're stuck, you could be used right now to help your friends and family to get unstuck out of their lives and in their situations. Proverbs 17, verse 17 says, "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity." Ecclesiastes 4, verses 9 and 10 says, "Two are better than one because they have a good return for their work. If one falls down, his friend can help him up. But pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up." Who are your true friends? And have you been a true friend to them? Who could you call on? What friendship has been built in adversity? Who have you gone the extra mile with? Who have you been building and loving and allowing into your life? And how can you lean on them this season to get you unstuck from where you're at? The second thing I learned is I needed to face reality. Much like Clarence took George through this journey of seeing what life would be like without him. We have to face reality. I took my current situation and I asked myself, is this where I wanted to be in the next 6 months? In 6 months, do I want to be in the same reality? Do I want to be in these same frustrations? Do I want to be dealing with these same problems? Do I want to be stuck in 6 months? And if you're looking at me and you're saying, "Pastor Steve, I don't want that in 6 months," then face reality. It's time to change. It's time to step out of this area. It's time for you to face the reality that you're stuck and you need change in your life. I had to look and see where my hope was in the situation, and I had to evaluate if there was hope, if there should be hope placed in that situation to bring the change I needed. I had to look to see if there was some type of hope and if I should have hope in that situation. And where did I need to bring the change? Where was the change I need to bring in this situation? Look at the situation you're dealing with. See if there's hope. See if you should be putting hope in that, and see if that hope, where you're putting that hope, is going to bring the change that's needed. Okay, you got to look at the situation. I want you to really grasp this. Look and see where the hope in the situation is, and see if there's change that can happen. If you look and say, "This is the hope of the situation changing," honestly evaluate seeing if that thing that you're hoping in has the power to change what you're going through. And if it doesn't, you have to evaluate how to get out of that situation. All right, third thing, I had to realign my focus and look at why God created me. When George looked at a life without him, when he saw Bedford Falls without George Bailey, he looked and he saw the impact on why he was created to be in Bedford Falls. Romans 11:29 says, "For God's gifts and his callings are irrevocable." Proverbs 4:25, "Let your eyes look straight forward. Fix your gaze directly before you." Colossians 3 and verse 2 says, "Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things." So I had to look at everything. For me, going back to the last point, I had to look and see what could change everything in this situation. What could change everything? And I had to look at that and say, if all these things happen, would I be unstuck? Would I be happy again? When I said, no, that won't make me happy if these things happen. So now I had to look back and go, what has God created me to do? How can I fix my focus and my vision straight ahead? I had to look at the things before me, and I had to go, what has God created me to do? And here are the things that God has called me to be. He's called me first and foremost to be a husband, before a pastor, before a friend, before this or that. The first thing God has called me to be is a husband. So I had to realign my focus and say, listen, how am I being the best husband that I can be? The second thing God has called me to be is a father, to love my children, to help my children to be who God is calling them to be. And how can I nurture them in a way to help them be the best people they could be? Then the third thing God called me to be is a minister. And sometimes these areas get mixed and our priorities kind of move and shift, but you got to keep your callings. You got to keep what God is calling you to be in order, and there has to be structure in your life, or that's where you start to see things fall and you start to see your life get stuck. And some of you today, much like George Bailey, you're not stuck because of destructive lifestyles. You're not stuck because of what people have done. You're stuck because you love where you're at. You're stuck because you've been doing what God's called you to do, but you just feel stuck in it. So let me ask you this. Can you realign your focus? Can you stop looking at the negative of what's going on in your life and look at the positive? Can you put your hope in the positive things that's happening in your life? Can you look and see that Bedford Falls isn't draining you, but you're empowering Bedford Falls, right? What is your Bedford Falls? Where are you stuck today? And how can you look and see that you too have a wonderful life, that you're needed, you're wanted, you're loved, you're accepted, you're an overcomer, you're redeemed, you're all of these things that God is saying you are, because He's placed you in community, He's placed you in family, He's placed you where you're at so that you can be a blessing. And sometimes being a blessing and being all these things can get us stuck when we put our focus in other areas, when we start to look at what we don't like and not what we're doing right, not what God is empowering us to do. So if you're stuck today, I want to ask you, is there hope? Where is the hope in your situation? And how can you build on it? Some of you may need to get unstuck by the love of a friend. Someone who's going to be honest with you, someone who's going to be truthful with you, someone who's going to call you out, because the wounds of a friend are a blessing. They're going to help. So who can you sit down with today and go, hey, listen, I think I'm stuck. And to take their advice and take what they want to say to you to heart. Maybe some of you need to sit down and talk to God again, saying, God, I really feel stuck in life. What do I need to do? How can I get out of this situation? George Bailey syndrome is about being stuck because of your heart, being stuck because of what you're doing right, that you're doing right, but it feels like you're stuck. And I want you to know, as your pastor, that I love you, that I believe in you, and your journey starts today. Your journey starts here with becoming unstuck. Who do you need to call? Who do you need to help you to get unstuck? Because getting unstuck is something you can't do alone. You need a friend. You need community. You need someone who loves you, who cares for you, who's going to be honest with you, that they're not going to console you, but they're going to pull you out. And I want to pray with you, because I believe now your journey starts here. Your journey starts now, and God wants to work this in your life. So let me pray with you. Lord, God, for the people who are watching and they feel stuck, They feel like they've done everything they've needed to do in this life, but yet here they are and they still feel stuck. They still feel hopeless. They still feel like there's no exit, there's no way out. But God, a lot of us are right where you want to be, but you need us to change and to shift our focus, not on the things that are dragging us down, not on the things that are hurting us, Lord. But God, we look at what you're doing through us. God, we see the love and the impact that people have because of our lives and because of our callings, Lord. So, God, for those who are feeling hopeless, God, I've been there. For those who feel stuck, Lord, I've felt that. And I know, God, that you want to help them. So, God, help them to reach out to a friend. Help them to reach out to the community that you've put them in. Help them, God, to reach out and to trust that you are working in their lives today, God. And you want to continue that. Lord, I pray they find a friend. I pray they're the friend that they need to be and they need in their life. I pray they change their focus. God, and I pray they put their hope in you, that you are changing their situations right now. God, we give you the praise, the glory, and the honor. In Jesus' name, amen.